Boy and Dog, Part 5. Frederick says, "Goodbye, young lad. If you ever need us, call. We will hear." Elsie says, "Yes, call us. If the sound is near the earth, Frederick will hear. If it rises to the sky, I will hear." "Goodbye, young boy." Spark says, "Goodbye, goodbye. Come on, Chip. We'll go this way." Chipper barks and runs in a different direction. Spark says, "Chipper, come back here. You're taking the wrong path." Spark chases after Chipper, both running out of sight. Elsie glances hesitantly, questioningly at Frederick, who grumbles uncomfortable. She flies up to join her friends. In a wooded area, Spark catches up with Chipper and playfully scolds him. "Chipper, you rascal! Follow me!" Chipper reluctantly joins Spark, and they retrace their steps. It's night in a wooded area. Struggling through tangled bushes, they arrive at a very dark place. Spark steps forward tentatively, reaches out. Ah, a tree, certain. Might as well stay here. His hands trace down the tree trunk, finding its roots. They both sink down and lean against its sturdiness. Spark says, "How's this, Chip?" Spark pulls a blanket from his satchel, covers them both. Then he says, "Spooky, huh? Dark. Wonder where we are." Chipper pushes himself against Spark and they fall asleep. In the morning they awaken to find themselves surrounded by mountains. Spark says, "Look, Chip, high mountains everywhere." He stands, turns around with apprehension. "I guess, do we have to climb those?" "Well, let's find something to eat and think about it." Spotting nuts on the tree above, he knocks some down, and they eat while Spark examines the mountains. He says, "They look so high. I can't climb those, Chip." But he notices one of the mountain's sparkling peaks and says, "Ho, that mountain's pretty certain, but I can't climb up there. I can't." But then he struggles with the inevitable and says, "It's the only way, though, huh? Oh, come on, Chip, we have to do it." They head towards the glittering mountain. Spark and Chipper struggle up the steep slope. Spark's gaze is kept rigidly ahead. In one of the rock crevices he sees what resembles a sparkling, jewel-like flower, which sways delicately. Spark bends down for a better look. "Chip, look at this. Beautiful, sure. But it's not a real flower, is it?" Spark sniffs at the flower, then looks up in surprise. No smell. After touching it, he pulls back, sucks his pricked finger, says, "Ouch." They resume climbing with the flower and others like it, leaning towards them, their departing figures. Finally, weary, they near the mountain peak. Here they find flowers and vines intertwining as they emerge from the craters, creating a tangled barrier which appears impenetrable. Spark plops down, surveys the tangled vines. "We're going to have to get through this, Chip." After a time, Spark stands. They wait for a gap in the barrier, and after several frustrating efforts, they dash through. Emerging on the other side of the barrier, they drop to the ground exhausted, but then hastily grab onto the craters as wild winds batter them. Light, a blinding light, blazes from a sky being called light. On top of the mountain, Spark shrinks from the light's brightness. Then dark, another sky being, plunges everything into velvety blackness. Dark says to Light, "Here you are again, Light, up to your old tricks. You hog all the day with your brightness, then want to use my time as well. Be off, I say." Dark's eyes flash. Spark and Chipper quiver, clutching at the crater's edge. Light blasts in, exposing the small figures of Spark and Chipper on the mountain peak below. Light says, "But Dark, you're always rushing things. The course of my journey must finish in its own proper time, which is not this moment." Dark pushes in. "Oh, no, you don't. I'm not leaving. If you had your way, you would never go." Light says, "You are quite right. In fact, I intend to speak to the powers that be and demand that you herewith be abolished." Dark's eyes wildly swirl. "Abolished? I too shall speak to the powers that be, and most certainly you will exist no more." Light says, "See here, you shall not accompany me." And Dark says, "I will accompany you. Let me pass." Light and Dark fling themselves into a fierce poetic battle. On the glittering mountaintop, Spark and Chipper are lifted up, then slammed down, buffeted by the force of the two sky beings' onslaught. Spark's satchel blows open, and his book flies out. He reaches for it, then freezes. The soaring heights and depths terrify him. His eyes squeeze shut. The book sails past his grasp. Then Light catches sight of the unfamiliar scene below. He signals Dark to pause. With the cessation of the battle, Spark's body bangs against the crater, then comes to rest. Light contemplates the little being, holding tightly to Chipper. From Light's perspective, they appear as tiny specks. And Light says, "What is this I see?" He takes a closer look, a frown forming. "You are very untidy." Spark shrinks from the brightness while making a feeble attempt at smoothing down his hair. Dark pushes in, her swirling eyes zeroing in on Spark. "Oh dear, wherever did you come from?" Light leans down. "But you look ill." His light sears. Spark recoils, covering his eyes. Light observes Spark's reaction, pulls back. "Ah, it's my brightness, isn't it? I've noticed this reaction from beings on your tiny planet." His brightness softens. Dark eyes narrow, and she says, "Well then, that is one more reason to eliminate you from our universe." Light ignores Dark, studies Spark thoughtfully. "Yes, I have a solution." A small cloud drifts down to hover over Spark's eyes. Light says, "Now, is that better?" Spark hesitantly removes his hands from his eyes and says, "Oh, much better. Thank you." He gazes at Light with awe. "You are beautiful, certain." Light says, "And you are a frazzled, disheveled young man." Dark says, "That is certainly true. Sit down, lad. Sit down. Rest." Spark peeks below and stiffens. "What's wrong?" asks Dark. And Spark replies, "I'm afraid." She says, "Afraid? Nonsense." Spark says, "I fell deep down into our well at home a time back. Chip fetched Grandpa." Dark says, I see. Do try to sit down." Spark sneaks another terrified glance below, and he says, "I can't." Dark says, "Well, of course you can. Just stand heavy so you won't topple over, then slowly lower yourself down." Spark, clinging to the crater, eyes forward, gingerly sits. Dark says, "There, you see? There you are. You did it. Now then, what are you called, young man?" "I'm called Spark."